Now, I thought perhaps it's time to mention or even refer to the fact that perhaps it's a bit unusual that all these strange happenings have happened to Ruth and I during our life, which is getting on quite a long time now. Next year, 2025, which is pretty incredible, then we will have been married for 60 years. Now that in itself is quite amazing, really. Ruth always has said that living with me has never been boring. Now you can see why she says that, can't you, if you look at all these stories that have come about. I suppose It's a Rum Life, I think, was a good choice to all the storybooks that I've written so far, because that's just what it has been. The word rum is a North of England colloquial term for unusual, perhaps, a bit different. So that's it. Now it all started, if you read book one, have a look at it. I was born in 1944. Mother and father weren't married. That's a start, isn't it? An unusual, a rum start to life. The other rum start to life was the fact that mother decided that she would put her husband on my birth certificate, who wasn't my father. So for the whole of my life, I've had to do something other because my name that I use isn't on my birth certificate, and the birth certificate has a completely different name. Now, by golly, I can tell you some stories about that throughout the whole of my life, and whenever I've come to deal with officialdom of one sort or another, even here in France, then I've had to cope with the fact that my birth certificate, and you will know how often you have to produce your birth certificate for some reason or other. Well, mine hasn't got my name on. So that's another rum thing. You see, it all started in a rum way, didn't it? Plus, my maternal grandmother, who was a lovely lady, and I lived with her for many of my young years, she was part of quite a grand family who have a coat of arms. It's a big family. Her great uncle was Lord Mayor of Ripon several times. This is all in Yorkshire, because that's where my part of the family lived for most of their lives. There's another story coming up about the Baines of Nidderdale, because Bain was the family name of my grandmother. And this uncle, who was the Lord Mayor of Ripon, produced 3 volumes of a book about the Baines of Nidderdale, and it went back, he spent years researching their family history, which went back to Odo, the half-brother of William the Conqueror. So, you know, it gets even more rum, doesn't it? And I've actually got 2 of these volumes that my grandmother gave me. The 3rd volume seems to have gone astray somewhere, but the 2 volumes I've got show in lots and lots of detail about how the family evolved from Odo, and who was the Bishop of Bayeux in Normandy, and how the family's name eventually became Bain, and then Baines, because those members of the family who left Nidderdale in Yorkshire, just above Harrogate, they then became Baines, and they added an S to their family name. So they were just it started off in a rum way, didn't it? So I won't go on a lot more, because you can read a lot about this in book 1, and I am going to do a bit of a story about the Baines of Nidderdale anyway, using my great uncle's books and family trees and whatever. So you can see why then in some way my start in life was a bit unusual, and consequently perhaps the rest of my life has continued to be a bit unusual. Or, now this is the question I've always wanted to ask other people, doesn't everybody live this way? There we are. So thank you for putting up with that little bit, a very short, barely 5 minutes. I hope it explains a little bit about how and why all these things have happened. And they continue to happen even today. Things continue to happen. So there we are. So I hope you enjoy all these stories. I shall continue to produce these stories as often as I can, while I can, and I hope you enjoy watching them. So there we are. Thanks for being with us. Don't forget, subscribe and like the channel. Subscribe and like the channel on YouTube if you like it. And thanks for being with us, and until the next time, cheerio.